She married him for his money, or at least, that's what everyone believed. The stunning wedding, the lavish parties, the sparkling social events all painted the perfect picture of a modern-day fairy tale. But behind the glossy smiles and designer gowns was a plan, a secret plan she thought would make her rich and free, a scheme to take what wasn't hers. What she didn't realize was that the man she married, a self-made black billionaire known for his sharp mind and quiet power, had already seen it coming. From the moment they met, he wasn't just another wealthy man blinded by love. No, he was watching her, studying her every move with a patience that few could match. She thought she was the one pulling the strings, that she had the upper hand. But in truth, he had been 3 steps ahead all along. The kind of man who never rushes, who lets the pieces fall exactly where they want, even when it looks like he's standing still. This isn't just a story about money or marriage. It's about power, trust, and the high-stakes game that plays out when 2 very different people collide in a world where nothing is quite what it seems. She believed she was the hunter, but in reality, she was walking right into a trap built slowly, carefully, with no chance of escape. The tension between them was electric. On the surface, their life looked perfect. Friends admired her style, neighbors envied their success, and social media buzzed with images of a couple that seemed unstoppable. But behind closed doors, the cracks were growing. He kept his distance, never losing his calm, while she grew bolder, thinking her plan was foolproof. What she didn't know was that every secret text, every late-night whisper, every small betrayal was being noted, collected like evidence. He had built his empire from nothing, and he wasn't about to let it be destroyed by someone he once trusted, or pretended to trust. His strategy wasn't about revenge or anger. It was about justice, about showing the world that beneath the wealth and charm, he was a man who could see through deception and bring it to light. And then came the moment that would change everything, the moment when the careful game of chess turned into a courtroom drama that would captivate a nation. It was the kind of case people would talk about for years: betrayal, greed, and a battle for truth played out in front of cameras and packed galleries. The courtroom of the century, they called it, where every move was scrutinized and the stakes couldn't have been higher. But the story doesn't end there. Far from it. Because even as the world waits for the final verdict, questions remain. Who really had the power? Was it the woman who dared to dream of a life beyond her means? Or the man who built an empire and wasn't afraid to fight for it? This is more than just a tale of marriage and money, it's a gripping look at ambition, betrayal, and the price people pay when they underestimate what someone is truly capable of. And as the courtroom doors swing open, the next chapter is about to begin, revealing secrets that could shake everything to its core. Stay with me, because this story is just getting started, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Before the cameras ever flashed or the courtroom drama began, their story started quietly, almost too quietly for a couple destined to shake the city. He was a man who didn't crave the spotlight, even though he was one of the richest people around. A billionaire with a reputation built on smart investments, patience, and a mind that never stopped working. People admired him for his success, but few really knew the person behind the power suit. He was calm, reserved, and cautious, the kind of man who kept his circle small and his cards close. She was everything he wasn't at first glance: charismatic, bold, and full of life. She came from a modest background, a world far from the luxury he was used to. When they met, it was as if 2 worlds collided. She was drawn to the glamour and wealth, dreaming of a life that seemed just out of reach. He was intrigued by her confidence, her ability to light up a room. But beneath that charm was a secret motive that few saw coming. She had plans that involved him and the fortune he'd built. At first, their relationship seemed like a whirlwind romance. The kind of story you'd expect in the headlines: young woman meets billionaire, love blossoms, and a fairy tale wedding follows. Friends and family were dazzled by the transformation, unaware of the cracks that already started to form behind the scenes. She moved quickly, stepping into a life she barely understood but was determined to control. And he stayed silent, watching as the pieces moved exactly where he wanted them. Behind closed doors, the air was thick with unspoken tension. There were late-night phone calls she thought were private, secret meetings she believed no one knew about. But he knew. He had eyes everywhere, trusted people who fed him information, and a mind that never stopped analyzing. Every smile she gave in public was a mask, a part of the act she believed was foolproof. But it wasn't foolproof at all. It was exactly what he expected. What made this story even more complicated was how deeply intertwined their lives had become. It wasn't just about money anymore, it was about control, about pride, and about who would come out on top. The stakes were higher than anyone imagined. For her, it was about survival and winning what she thought was rightfully hers. For him, it was about protecting everything he'd built and proving that no one could fool him, not even the person closest to him. As the tension built, so did the risk. The small lies turned into bigger secrets, the quiet suspicions grew into open confrontations behind locked doors. Friends started noticing the changes, whispers of trouble floated through social circles, but the truth remained hidden beneath layers of wealth and appearances. She believed she was unstoppable, but the deeper she dug, the tighter the net around her became. What made this battle truly gripping wasn't just the clash of two wills but the question of who really held the power. Was it the woman who played the game with a fierce determination, or the man who had patiently prepared his move from the start? The answer wasn't simple. It was wrapped up in years of strategy, careful planning, and a will that refused to break. Now, as the day of reckoning approached, the whole city was watching. The courtroom wasn't just a place for legal battles, it was the stage for a story about trust and betrayal, ambition and justice. Everyone wondered what would happen when the truth finally came out. Would she walk away with everything she wanted? Or would he prove that no matter how clever the con, some people are just too smart to be fooled? This story is far from over. And as the trial begins, the secrets that have been hidden for so long will finally start to unravel, changing everything in ways no one saw coming. The courtroom was just the surface of a much deeper conflict, one that had been brewing long before the trial started. This wasn't simply a case about money or marriage, it was about the collision of two very different worlds and the consequences of choices made in shadows. The billionaire's calm exterior hid a relentless mind carefully unraveling the truth piece by piece. Meanwhile, she was fighting to keep her grip on a world that felt both foreign and tantalizingly close. One of the subplots twisting through this drama was the question of loyalty. Within their circle, within their families, and even within themselves. His closest advisors and family members were caught between wanting to protect him and worrying about what this scandal might do to their reputation. On the other side, she had allies too, people from her past who believed her story, who saw her as a survivor rather than a schemer. These conflicting loyalties added layers of complexity to the case, as whispered conversations and secret meetings unfolded behind the scenes. Another angle was the media frenzy. As news of the trial spread, reporters descended, hungry for every detail. Headlines spun narratives of greed, betrayal, and heartbreak. Social media exploded with opinions, some siding with the billionaire, praising his patience and intelligence, others sympathizing with the woman, painting her as a victim of a cold, distant man. The pressure wasn't just in the courtroom, it was everywhere, making every move public and every word scrutinized. But perhaps the most gripping part of the conflict was the psychological game between the two at the center. She had thought she was the one in control, manipulating the situation with clever lies and half-truths. Yet he seemed to know her next move before she even made it. It was a battle of minds, a slow-burning war where trust had long since evaporated, replaced by suspicion and careful calculation. Neither wanted to show weakness, and both knew that a single misstep could change everything. There were moments when the billionaire's quiet demeanor cracked, brief flashes of anger or hurt that hinted at the deeper pain beneath. It was clear this wasn't just about money, it was personal. The woman, on her part, sometimes showed cracks too, moments where fear flickered behind her confident facade, moments when the weight of the trap closing in became almost unbearable. Behind all this was a bigger question: what does it mean to truly win? Was victory about money, reputation, or something more? Both had sacrificed pieces of themselves along the way, and neither could afford to lose, not now, not after coming this far. And as the courtroom battle dragged on, it became clear that this was not just a fight over assets but a struggle for identity, respect, and survival. Even as lawyers argued and evidence piled up, unexpected twists began to surface. Hidden connections emerged, and long-buried secrets came to light. The more that was revealed, the less clear the truth seemed. Friends who once seemed loyal started to doubt. Witnesses who should have supported one side suddenly changed their stories. Every new detail added another layer of mystery, another reason for the audience to stay glued to the story. And through it all, the question lingered: who was really pulling the strings? Was it the woman who had dared to challenge the system, or the man who had built a fortress around himself, ready to defend it at all costs? This was a story with no easy answers, only more questions, questions that would keep everyone guessing until the very end. The trap was set, but the final move hadn't been made yet. And as the tension tightened like a noose, one thing was certain: neither of them was ready to back down. Days turned into weeks, and the courtroom drama intensified with every passing moment. The air was thick with anticipation, as if everyone knew that the final showdown was drawing near, but no one quite knew how it would unfold. The billionaire remained calm on the surface, but those who looked closely could see the strain behind his eyes. The woman, once so confident and fearless, was growing more guarded, her usual spark replaced by a nervous edge. The lawyers fought fiercely, each side unleashing evidence that seemed to shift the balance with every revelation. Documents appeared that challenged everything she had claimed, emails and phone records laid bare in front of a packed courtroom. Yet, she wasn't defeated, not yet. Every time it seemed like the truth was slipping away from her, she found a way to strike back, planting doubts and casting shadows on his story. The battle was no longer just legal, it was psychological warfare. Behind the scenes, whispers of new witnesses and unexpected testimonies circulated, keeping everyone guessing. People who once kept quiet suddenly stepped forward, their words carrying weight and power. Friends turned into enemies, and enemies looked for unlikely alliances. The tension was unbearable, not just for those involved, but for the entire city watching the spectacle unfold. Social media exploded with debates, theories, and predictions, each more dramatic than the last. At the center of it all, the billionaire made a move that surprised many, a carefully planned moment that shifted the atmosphere in the courtroom. He didn't just rely on evidence or witnesses, he revealed something deeper, something personal. It was a quiet reminder of the man beneath the wealth, the man who had been hurt, betrayed, but never broken. The way he looked at her, the way he spoke, sent a message: this wasn't just a game. This was a fight for truth, and he was ready to win. She felt it too. The trap she had walked into was tightening, and the walls closing in. Every step forward was met with resistance, every plan met with a counter. The glamorous life she once dreamed of was slipping through her fingers, replaced by a harsh reality where trust was a weapon and deception a shield. And yet, she refused to give up, driven by a mix of desperation and pride. As the trial moved closer to its climax, the courtroom became a stage for the most intense moments yet. Questions hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Would the truth finally come out? Could the billionaire prove he had been 3 steps ahead all along? Or would she pull off one last move, turning the tables in a way no one expected? The atmosphere was electric, every eye fixed on the judge, the lawyers, the two people at the heart of this storm. The tension was almost unbearable, a quiet hum of suspense that made every breath feel heavy. The story that started as a marriage for money had grown into something much bigger, a battle for justice, for identity, for survival. And just when it seemed like the moment of reckoning was about to arrive, a sudden twist threatened to change everything again. A piece of evidence so shocking, so unexpected, it left the courtroom gasping. The scales of power seemed to wobble, and the question everyone was waiting to answer, who really had the upper hand, became more uncertain than ever. The trap was closing, but the final move was still unknown. The billionaire and the woman, locked in a battle of wills, were about to face their most defining moment. And for everyone watching, the wait would be agonizing. What happens next? That's the question hanging in the air, ready to explode. Just when the courtroom seemed to reach its breaking point, and everyone braced for the final verdict, a new revelation turned the entire case upside down. The kind of twist no one saw coming. A quiet murmur rippled through the room as the billionaire's attorney called for an unexpected witness, someone from her past, someone whose testimony promised to change everything. The woman's face drained of color. This wasn't part of the plan. For years, she had carefully built a story, covering up mistakes and crafting a narrative that would protect her. But now, the past was catching up, dragging secrets she thought buried deep back into the harsh light of day. The new witness wasn't just any stranger, this was someone who knew her in ways no one else did, someone who held pieces of the puzzle that could shatter everything. The tension skyrocketed as the witness took the stand, eyes locked on the woman. Their words were slow at first, almost hesitant, but what followed was a string of details that no one could ignore. Stories of deception, manipulation, and betrayal, not just in the marriage, but long before. The courtroom held its breath as the web of lies began to unravel further, revealing a side of her that few had ever seen. This second twist didn't just complicate the trial, it escalated the entire conflict. The billionaire, who had seemed so composed, now had even more proof that his suspicions were right. He wasn't just fighting to protect his wealth anymore, he was fighting to expose the truth behind years of calculated moves, and to reclaim the dignity that had been stolen from him. For her, the stakes couldn't have been higher. Every revelation pushed her closer to the edge, forcing her to confront choices she had long ignored. The glamorous life, the dreams of fortune, all seemed to slip further away with each word spoken. But she wasn't ready to surrender. In that courtroom, under the harsh glare of justice and judgment, she still fought fiercely, knowing that her future, her freedom, everything she hoped for, was on the line. Outside the courtroom, the buzz grew louder. Social media exploded with speculation, news outlets scrambled to report every new detail, and public opinion swung wildly between sympathy and condemnation. The story had become more than just a legal battle, it was a high-stakes drama about trust, betrayal, and the dangerous game of power. As the trial approached its climax, the question everyone wanted answered remained painfully out of reach. Who truly held the upper hand in this tangled web of love and lies? The billionaire, with his patient strategy and unshakable resolve? Or the woman, whose secrets threatened to rewrite the story at any moment? The courtroom drama was far from over. The tension was now a pressure cooker, building to an explosion that no one could predict. Every new twist raised the stakes, drawing the audience deeper into a story where nothing was certain and every move counted. And as the next chapter prepared to unfold, one thing was clear: in this game of deception and truth, no one could afford to make a mistake. The final act was fast approaching, and with it, the answers that had eluded everyone so far, answers that would change everything forever. The courtroom was silent, every eye fixed on the final moments that would decide the fate of two lives tangled in a web of trust and betrayal. The billionaire rose to speak, his voice steady but filled with a quiet power that had been building beneath the surface the entire time. He didn't just present facts or figures, he shared a story, one of resilience, of pain, and of the strength it took to see through deception and fight for justice. As he laid out the truth, the pieces fell into place. The woman's carefully constructed facade crumbled under the weight of undeniable evidence, her web of lies exposed for all to see. The courtroom watched as her confident mask slipped, revealing the fear and regret she tried so hard to hide. The man who had been 3 steps ahead finally showed the depth of his strategy, a plan not for revenge, but for truth and fairness. The judge's words were clear and decisive. The billionaire's victory was not just a win in court, but a reclaiming of respect and dignity stolen from him. The woman was held accountable, her actions no longer hidden behind charm and ambition. The tension that had gripped the room for so long finally began to ease, replaced by a sense of closure and justice served. But just as everyone began to breathe a sigh of relief, a hush fell over the courtroom once more. The final twist, a revelation so unexpected it sent shockwaves through everyone present. Evidence surfaced that challenged everything again, hinting at deeper layers of the story still untold. It was a reminder that in a game this complex, no one ever truly knows all the cards until the very end. That last twist left the audience on the edge of their seats, realizing this was not just a story about marriage and money, but about the shadows that lurk behind every secret, and the lengths people will go to protect what they believe is theirs. The billionaire's patience and intelligence had won the day, but the story's final chapter hinted at mysteries yet to unfold. In the end, the courtroom drama became a powerful lesson about trust, betrayal, and the unpredictable nature of truth, a story that would be remembered long after the verdict, leaving everyone wondering what might come next. The courtroom slowly emptied, but the weight of the trial lingered like a quiet storm. Outside, the world buzzed with reactions, opinions, and the inevitable questions that come after such a dramatic conclusion. The billionaire had reclaimed not just his fortune, but his peace of mind, proving that patience and careful planning could outsmart even the most daring of schemes. For the woman, the verdict was a harsh reckoning, a moment to face the consequences of choices that had been made in desperation and ambition. Yet, beyond the headlines and the verdict, there was something deeper to take away from this story. It wasn't simply about money or deceit. It was a powerful reminder of the fragile nature of trust and the price of betrayal. Both of them had lost something precious along the way, the woman, her freedom and future, the man, the ability to trust so fully again. Their story showed how love, greed, and ambition can mix into a complicated web that's not easily untangled. The billionaire returned to his life, but not unchanged. The experience left its mark, sharpening his resolve to protect what truly mattered: honesty, loyalty, and the quiet strength of knowing your worth. His story became more than just one of wealth and power. It became a testament to resilience and wisdom, a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting ambition cloud judgment. For the woman, life after the trial was uncertain. The past she had tried to escape caught up with her in the courtroom, but it also opened the door to reflection. Behind the tough exterior was a person forced to confront her mistakes and reckon with the damage done, not just to others, but to herself. Whether she would find redemption or remain trapped by the choices she made was a story only time could tell. Friends and family on both sides were left to pick up the pieces. Some relationships were strengthened by truth and forgiveness, while others were fractured beyond repair. The trial exposed hidden loyalties and unexpected betrayals, reminding everyone involved that even the closest bonds can be tested in the harshest ways. As the dust settled, many realized that this was a story about more than just a marriage or a fortune. It was about the complexity of human nature, the desires, fears, and flaws that drive us all. It showed how appearances can be deceiving, and how sometimes the biggest battles are fought not with words or money, but with patience, courage, and the willingness to face hard truths. This tale of a billionaire who was 3 steps ahead, and the woman who thought she could outsmart him, left a lasting impression. It reminded us that no matter how smart or prepared we think we are, life has a way of surprising us, and that the most powerful victories are often quiet, earned through wisdom rather than force. In the end, the courtroom wasn't just a place of judgment, it was a stage where 2 lives intersected, collided, and changed forever. And while the verdict brought closure, the lessons from their story would echo far beyond the walls of that room. So as this chapter closes, we're left with a question to carry forward: what would you do if the person you thought you knew was playing a game you didn't even see? The answer might just change how you look at trust, ambition, and the true meaning of winning.